So this time we're talking about the great escape. And I saved this for last because I really wanted to talk about, yes, we're going to discuss some of the things that you all have endured and we all endure, but I want to talk about how y'all got out. Because some of the stuff that you both have talked about, I know both your stories, at least some of both your stories. And to look at you, you would never even imagine some of the things that you've gone through. And you know, people like to say we don't look like what we've been through. That is the truth. That's the darn truth when it comes to the two of you. So I want the world to know how powerful and beautiful these women are. And sometimes people can make judgment looking at people thinking that they've never gone through anything and stuff like that. So I want them to hear from y'all tonight. It's like, yeah, say they're looking real good. Look, and look, Pastor Belinda all made up, little lipstick on 9:30 at night. Watch out, Brother Henry.
I gave you, I'm coming strong.
See, I decided, I said, I'm going to do the baseball cap today. I'm going to let the beauties just, you know, let them roll like that. I'm serving. I'm working tonight, y'all. I'm working. So let's continue to get these numbers up just a little bit. I see you, Mother Eva. I see you, Sister Alexa. Bless you, Chelsea. Yes.
Lady, I'm having people texting me. They're having problems getting on, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, tell them to go to the Spirit-Led Life page because it's up. I'm looking right at it. So it's up. Yeah, tell them to go to the Spirit-Led Life page.
Okay.
And just click. It should pop right up, but we are live.
Okay.
So, all right. So anyway. Our numbers are doing better. People are moving slow today, but come on, y'all. I am ready. Okay. So, like I said, tonight we're going to be talking about, I'm going to go ahead and get started so that we are not on here too long because I try not to go too long, especially if I choose this time later because if they have kids, you can put the kids in bed, you don't have any interruptions, you know, and early enough that it's just not so late that it does not interfere with the rest of your day. So today we want to talk about the Great Escape. And I think that's a perfect title for y'all. I do. You know, when I was preparing this, I was like, okay, so this fits the two of them, right? So overall, we're talking about mental health. Why mental health? Because mental health affects the way we act, the way we think, and the way we feel. Every fiber of our being is connected to our mental health. It is imperative that we are healthy mentally. So this is why we're having these conversations. So today we're going to talk about the effects of relational trauma and the process for being healed and being whole. So yeah, we're going to talk about some nitty gritty, but how do you come out? How did you get out? Yes. And to be able to reach back and help somebody else. I am mesmerized, as I said earlier, by your stories and by your experiences and the power and the strength that you had to endure to come out. So I bow my hat to you both. I have some of my own trauma, but y'all make my little story look like a fairy tale. So yeah. So we're going to talk about overcoming the effects of trauma. And let me just go ahead and introduce these two ladies. So let's start out with Pastor Belinda Knox, a woman to woman. See, she's waving at y'all. Go ahead and smile at the people. I have known Pastor Belinda probably about 18 years now, about 18 years. I think I know a little something about this woman. So she is the founder of Woman to Woman, which is, she's the CEO and founder. It's a nonprofit agency that is geared toward empowering and healing of women. But check this out. Her heart is tender toward people who face life-altering challenges. She didn't just stop there because she also was once a woman who struggled with insecurities of life, drug abuse, depression, homelessness, emotional and verbal abuse, and rejection by the ones she loved the most. Just right there, girl. I was like, dang, okay. So I know some of your story, but reading all of that, I can't wait till we get into the meat of that. So I also want to introduce Dr. Sonia Cook. So I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Sonia Cook. It's probably about 4 or 5 years now. About 4 or 5 years. And I think she's absolutely beautiful woman. I met her through Pastor Belinda. So the two of them on here together, God got jokes. So she is the founder of FSH Women's Ministry. It is a ministry of faith, salvation, and healing for hurting women. Now, here's her twist. Her traumatic experience of molestation and rape has enabled her to empathize, with women who experience sexual abuse, physical and emotional abuse, as well as depression. Whew! I said, my God, this is gonna be something. I mean, how are y'all feeling this? I see our numbers are where they should be now. Okay, so along that line, let's go here. We're talking about relational trauma, but not everybody's stressful experience is trauma. I am going to go ahead and give you the definition because some people might not know. Those who've been on all 2 sessions, just bear with us, okay? But according to the APA, that is American Psychological Association, trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, a rape, or a natural disaster, and so on and so on. Tonight, I want to introduce 3 types of trauma, but we're going to hone in on one, and you'll know why. So one type of trauma is called acute trauma. And that is a single stressful event. That's one thing that may happen. You may lose your house to a fire. You may be in a hurricane. That would be acute. Number 2 is called chronic trauma. And that is repeated, prolonged exposure to high levels of stress. Example, like child abuse. The whole time you're in your youth, you may be abused or bullying. That would be considered chronic. Now tonight, number 3 is called complex trauma. And complex trauma is exposure to multiple traumatic events, which I just read both of their bios. You guys definitely have experienced complex trauma. Okay, one event is bad enough, but multiple.
My Lord, yes.
Right. So as we get into this discussion, I'm going to start here, and let's start with Dr. Sonia. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts first about relational trauma, and give us a little bit of your personal story. And then we're going to go right to Pastor Belinda.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Oh, nice to have everyone on tonight. We're excited. Just excited to give you information. And I just want to say thank you, Dr. Diane, for having me on. Yes, as she said, we met about 4 years ago. And my God, it feels like we have known each other for so long.
It does.
She herself is just a beautiful woman, excited, passionate about what she does. And I just love it. I just love her. I fell in love with her the first time I met her.
You too. Thank you.
Praise God. So as she explained to you what relational trauma is, it's damage to you caused by any kind of emotional, mental, or physical trauma, anything that you have gone through. Any situation that a person perceive as horrifying and life-threatening is relational trauma. And the effects of which are PTSD. And most of you may know post-traumatic stress disorder. And we may associate that term with just military, but it's not. It's anyone, anywhere who has gone through some type of trauma. And the post-traumatic stress disorder may come right away, or it may take years or some time, over a period of time to come. Of course, you experience reliving certain situations that you have gone through. You experience those traumatic things. You have nightmares, you name it, anything that can happen. Places, people remind you of certain things that you have gone through, and it brings back certain emotions in you. It's relational trauma, especially in an early age, disrupts your growth and your development. True. And that creates problems throughout your life. That happens at a young age and throughout your life. It forms your life, so to speak. It not only impacts your emotion, but it also impacts your relationship with others, if you will. So my personal journey, you wanted me to go ahead and tell.
Sure, tell us a little bit, just a little bit, because we're gonna get it. We're gonna talk about it throughout.
Okay, all right, so great. So of course, my personal trauma started around the age of 9 through the age of 14. And as Dr. Dye says, it had to do with rape, molestation for all those years that I had gone through. And there's some other things that happens after that, but as we go through and as we go along, I'll give you some more information about that. And just to say that those things shaped my life, good, bad, and indifferent, and they shaped my life and brought me to the place where I am today. Lots of things have happened there, but as she says, praise God, I don't look like what I've been through.
Amen.
We don't look like what we've been through. Praise be to God.
Amen. All right, Pastor Belinda, you ready?
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I thought you had control of it. Hey, everybody. Yes, I am ready. Thank you. First of all, Dr. Diane, Pastor Diane, thank you so much for having me on. It is such a pleasure and an honor. That's why I got all dialed up for you, because I know most of your listeners, not that they be taking a sister out, so I want to make sure I came correct. You know what? You taught me well that when you represent yourself, when you're out in the public, you make sure you're straight. So I want to make sure. But when you were doing the introduction and talking about the different types of trauma, and you talked about the fire trauma, like a person can be traumatized through fire. I remember when I was about maybe 5 or 6, I set our house on fire.
Okay.
Wow. And I remembered it, but when you said that, I didn't know how much trauma that had caused me as a child. And when it happened, my mother wasn't at home.
You set your house on fire.
I set the house on fire.
On purpose?
My sister was a baby.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. So it could have been a very different story. My sister is still living.
Oh, thank you, God.
When you see, I said, oh my God, I was traumatized through that. Because I know when you sent me what we were going to be talking about, I kind of researched it a little bit more, and it talked about the emotional detachment. Sure. So that was one of the things that I really dealt with. But when you talked about the acute other traumas that we have, so I believe that I had multiple traumas throughout my coming up. So maybe that was the first one. And maybe also stuck with my dad and my mom, of course, but just the emotional. But that fire thing, I remember distinctly when it happened. Nobody was there. I think there was a tissue box in the house, and I loved going to the circus. And our aunt would take us to the circus. And you remember the guy would set stuff on fire, and that just it mesmerized me. So I thought that I could do it too. Remember when they said, "Don't do this at home"?
Oh, okay. So it was an accident.
It was an accident. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I needed you to say that.
I'm sorry, but it's nevertheless, it still happened. So not knowing what to do, and a neighbor came over and he got my sister out of the crib, and I'm just kind of standing there going. And then when my mom came home, of course, she was really upset. So that meant we were displaced as a result of the actions that I did.
Wow.
So yes, ma'am. Yes,
wow.
ma'am. Yeah.
Okay.
I never thought about how much that probably did affect me growing up as well.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So y'all see, we getting started with some good conversation here. So as you guys talk about your traumas, Pastor Belinda, I'll go back to you. You talked about that emotional part. Yes, so I want to talk about emotional neglect, because you brought up that at the age of 4 or 5. And I know something about emotional neglect is when children feel like their needs are not being met. And they grow up into adults who have those same feelings. And then adults who often deal with emotional neglect often are independent. They don't want any help. They want to do everything by themselves because they learn at an early age that their needs were not important. Do you agree with that?
I totally agree. And when I looked it up, it's called dreading.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to I don't want to have to ask anybody for anything, because I don't want to be disappointed if you tell me no. I don't want to hear the word no, because then I think it has something to do with me. That's necessarily the situation, but it's about Belinda and that I'm bad and that I did something wrong and that I'm not good enough. So I don't want to hear the word no. So if I do it myself, I don't have to worry about hearing the word no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So do you recognize that within yourself and try to adjust?
Yes.
Because this has been a lifelong battle, right? from
Yes, it has
childhood.
been. And I just came to terms with being able to understand it a little bit more over the past couple of years. I started a master's program, and that was something that some of the things that they actually talked about. I never knew exactly what it was, but I always had this feeling like I got to take care of myself, because if I don't, nobody else will. My mom was always gone out doing her own thing, and I was there with my sister. So I took care of her, and I took care of myself. So I remember one time she told me to cook something. I didn't know how to cook it, but I knew if I messed it up, I was going to get in trouble. So I had to always try to figure stuff out on my own. I didn't have any older siblings at the house at the time, so I always had to try to figure things out on my own. So therein lies not asking for help.
So because of that, and we're going to move on, but I'm interested, are you often misunderstood? Because if you don't ask for help and you don't, work well with other people, I can see how people could like misdiagnose that. Do you have that?
Yeah, I do. And I did not, I didn't understand it before, but I'm beginning to understand myself a little bit more in that instance. It's not that I don't want the help, but I feel like they don't really want to be bothered with me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's very
If I
transparent.
do it, and I don't have to worry about asking anyone, so I'll do everything, and then I get pissed off because nobody helped me, but they didn't offer to help.
So that's twofold. That is okay. That's that withdrawal and an internal component, and it is also you're reflecting your behaviors on other people. So you're angry and you feel abandoned, and then you're angry because I don't want you to help me at the same time.
Then it's also one more too. I also sometimes use it as a protector, because if you tell me no, then I don't have to worry about being upset.
Okay. That is okay. Okay, we got some layers here. All right, I hear you. Okay. So hey, I talked about this last week. I think it's appropriate this week. In statistics, it says that people who have multiple traumas, such as the two of you, most people have low self-esteem and low self-confidence. Now, you might not be there anymore because you two have evolved. Is there any truth to those stats? So I'll go to Dr. Sonia first, and then I'll come back to you, Pastor Belinda, to let you answer that.
Yeah, most definitely. There is truth to that. One of the things, though, even though we use low self-esteem and I'm sorry, what was the other? Low self-confidence. Sometimes we use them interchangeable, but they're totally different. But yes, they are. The low self-esteem is how you value yourself, what you think about yourself, how you look at yourself. Whereas the confidence, low self-confidence, is your ability, not feeling like you're capable of doing something.
Absolutely.
What your ability is to do that thing. Now, the self-confidence portion of it is that you can be at times confident in something that you're doing. You have confidence in that, but at other times you don't have confidence in something else. So you may feel good about this one thing and that, okay, I got this, I can do this. But then something else comes and you don't feel that confident in what you're doing. It's like, you're saying that we have evolved. I don't believe that I have a low self-esteem problem, but the low self-confidence, there are times when that comes into play and it depends on where I am and who I'm around, the people I'm around. I may feel like, wow, they can do these things, but I can't. So you withdraw, you feel intimidated because of what someone else is doing. And you feel, oh yeah, I'm not good enough to do that. So that low self-confidence comes in at different times. And then there are times when, listen, I got this. And I'll step out and say, yeah, I can do this. So yes, there is some truth to that.
Wow, awesome. Great perspective. I agree that at times it depends on what it is you're up against. Pastor Belinda, what do you think?
I totally agree. And I also was reading up on that, and they talked about oftentimes we feel invisible.
Talk to me about that.
Like if you see someone doing something, like maybe I wish, or I thought I should have done it as well, or in a crowd of people that's doing really well, I often feel invisible, like I'm not as good, or I don't measure up. And another thing that I had wrote down, often taking a back seat. But you know how to drive, but you'll get in the back seat because you don't want to feel like you're going to mess it up or you're not good enough to drive. Even though you may know how to drive, I will often take a back seat to things as well because my confidence is not at that level.
Yeah. Oh, I can, I can relate to that, the self-confidence piece, because of my own traumatic experience in school with racism and things of that nature. And it made me shrink and play small because I felt minimized, and probably not necessarily invisible, but I felt like I didn't matter. And sometimes when you feel like it doesn't matter, you don't even want to put forth the effort. And so you will downplay your ability because it makes you feel like, I know the answer, but I'm not going to say anything. So I'll let you figure it out on your own. And it's almost like you got a secret, but really you're downplaying yourself and you're playing into whatever the ideas are that you had anyway. So let's go a little bit further. I like this. Y'all like this? Is this good conversation? So, all right, y'all. So let's talk about coping mechanisms. So one of the things I want to start with, Pastor Belinda, I looked up some substance abuse numbers and some ideas. Now, I don't know if Pastor Sonia knows, but I have an MSW. So 6 years of my life, I spent studying all of the behavioral sciences and all of that, which is why this is so important to me. So I am definitely a counselor in my spirit. So there are some things that I do know, but there's some things, things change over time. So when I'm interacting with people and I know some of their story, I try to relate some of my training so I could better relate to them, because sometimes I think people get misjudged and misdiagnosed because you really don't know the core of who they are and you make all of these assumptions. So with that, I looked at some substance abuse, and Pastor Belinda, there are some numbers I just was blown away. And every time I look at you, I think about it and some of your accomplishments, and we'll talk about some of the things that you were able to do with your life, because I want you to talk about just hitting rock bottom and bouncing back 100, right? But I found stats that said nearly 2/3 of drug or alcohol addicted people have experienced one or multiple forms of trauma. 2/3 is a lot. That's a lot of people. And so as I started reading this, it talked about how the traumatic experience, I guess I was trying to figure out if the trauma is what moved people toward addiction, or is the addiction a part of the trauma? I couldn't figure out which one came first. And so the more I read, it really was like, it depends on the individual. Yeah.
I think it's kind of muddled in between, because I think for me, probably the trauma came first with the abandonment issues, the emotional neglect, and then I used the substance as a cover-up, a way to cope. It didn't start out being that way. You know how you hanging out with your friends, teenager, smoking weed, drinking on the weekends and things like that. And it just kind of seemed to climb. It was like a steady climb. And because I was looking for acceptance and love in various areas, I'm having sex with people I shouldn't have been having sex with. We call it random acts of kindness.
Wait, I have to pause here. I know this has nothing to do with church, but I have.
Oh, sorry.
Audience, no. Audience, I want y'all to know this. So I was just getting to know Pastor Belinda, and so we did this activity, and we called it RACKS, Random Act of Kindness. And she just kind of had this look on her face, and I was like, what? And she said, I did a lot of RACKS. And I said, what do you mean? And she explained to me her random acts of kindness during that time. And I said, oh my God, I'm never going to look at it the same way.
Exactly.
So I'm like, honey, you have given me a different perspective. I was like, okay, so we'll never use RACKS again.
Okay, we won't use that again. But that was just a way of filling that hole that I had. So when it came to substances, and like I said, it was a slow, and then it was a steady climb, and then it was a drop to the bottom, because of course, in the beginning, you're hanging out, having fun, but then all of a sudden this monster kind of takes over you and you can't get away from it. So even for myself, I didn't have any children when I started drinking and drugging and hanging out like this. So I just kind of did what I did. the story, like when I eat, my family eats, so I didn't have to worry about anybody or anything but myself. I was all over everywhere. But when I wound up getting pregnant, that's when things changed for me. I had my son, I have 3 children out there, all adults, but like it was very, very trying. My son is now 33 and I have a 31-year-old and a 30-year-old. But when they were babies, all of them went into foster care as a result of my substance abuse. And when you said which one comes first, I believe the trauma comes first. For me, it did. And then the substance was just a way to cover up how I was feeling. And it just took me to a place that I don't even know how I got there. And then also dealing with the emotional detachment and not having a support system, it took me a while to come back. But it was always something inside of me saying, you know what, this is not really who you are. This is who you became, but this is not really who you are.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So I think that's always something that I held on to. And it's like, God, how do I get out of this? And I knew that I could pray. I would still go to church, even in my addiction. You know, I was that person that would kind of like come in off the street and everybody knew me because we lived in a small town. So, you know, they felt sorry for you, or they would give you something to eat, or they would buy you clothes or different things like that. But I was always a smart girl. It wasn't that I was dumb, but because of like what had happened, dealing with the trauma and then the substance abuse on top of that, it just took me someplace that it was hard to come back for. And I believe today that's why I have such a heart for women that go through what they go through, because I know what that feels like. It's not like that you set out to leave your children or have them to go into foster care, or you doing all these things just to get money. It's a monster. And when you said the great escape, there is no other term that can describe what I went through and being able to come out of it. It's kind of like you're breaking out of prison. You like how when they say they put you in these different layers in a prison cell, you're able to break out of that. That's basically what it was like. And for me, it was a living hell because that's not really who I was.
Tell me this. When you were going through your substance abuse, how long were you an addict, if you don't mind telling us?
Okay, so I started, so I don't know how I would calculate it, but I think in the depths of my addiction, maybe like 10 years.
Okay, all right.
Of course, it started with drinking and, you know, smoking weed and stuff like that. But really with the cocaine and smoking crack and stuff like that, about a good 10 years.
Yeah. So I know that the more you use, the more your body desires, which is what causes you to kind of continue. And So when did you know that you had enough? Was there one incident that happened to you?
It was multiple. It wasn't one thing. I think it was multiple things. And I remember the one time when I just, you know how you get that feeling like, you know, I can't keep doing this. And even though the children, they were well taken care of, they were in foster care, and God had placed them with some phenomenal people that loved them and took good care of them. But it wasn't even about that anymore, because I had went to treatment twice. And now how they said, oh, I'm going to do it for my children. I want to get my kids back. But then I had to say, no, I had to do it for myself. And I remember one time I did call, I think I talked to my mom. And that was the first time I had heard a voice of empathy from her. But she told me, if you can't do it for yourself, think about your kids. But then also seeing it in reverse, and she thought enough of me to say, you know what, that you can do this. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's deep, girl.
Yeah, it was a couple little things, and not even going to jail, you know, like going into treatment, that didn't stop me. It was just those little moments, like coming home from Bible study and you remembering a scripture and you sitting down smoking crack, but you got the Bible open.
Girl, you better tell the truth, though. Thank you. You better tell the truth. The church, you know, the church does not do a good job sometimes of making that transition for people who are stuck in addictions or who are dealing with trauma, to make the path easy. Because it is so easy to kind of just leave them out if you don't look like the traditional, you know, or act in the traditional sense. So I'm glad that you still went to church.
Yeah, I did. And it's not like, and I think a lot of people think, oh, you should just stop. You should do that. Don't you, you know, you're better than that. That's shaking the finger. And it's like, yeah, I know, but I still want to get high. You know, I still want, you know, and it was so awesome when Pastor said on Sunday that he kind of really understood addiction, because when we were on the fast, we couldn't have the coffee. Think about that thing multiplied 20 times.
Yeah.
Think about that addiction being multiplied, and not so much as just the coffee, But it was just so much more than that. Just the lifestyle, what I had driven myself into. A lot of dark places, things that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, even going to jail and then having assistant pastor come and see you in the jailhouse.
But you know,
Yeah.
all of that now is what you do for other people.
Yeah.
And that's the part that we will get to in the end, that our stories are different and we all have encountered some things like that, but God uses all of that. And I don't want to go to the church, y'all. Don't let them make the pastor come out now.
Right.
But all of that is part of our journey. And if we can learn to embrace that, then I think we probably would have a lot more manifestations of healings in our churches, because people who have encountered some of what they encounter are sitting right there with them. But for some reason, people are quiet. They don't talk about it. Everything's secret. And one of the reasons I wanted to interview you, Pastor Belinda, is because a lot of people who know you, who know us, don't know those intimate details about you. And I often say, oh my God, you have got to hear her story. And so I think people would be shocked. Yeah, but like, oh my God. It doesn't make them feel so bad and don't feel like they have to hide theirs, because his pastor and she understands, don't get brand new. And so I think that's what's required. So we're going to get back into that, because y'all know I done shifted real quick. Okay, I want to talk. I'm going to jump to Dr. Sonia, because I looked up some sexual violence information too. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood what sexual violence was, because I find that sometimes people who actually are assaulted don't even know that they were assaulted. They just think it's just their boyfriend, or this what we do is just, and they don't see it as that. But sexual assault is sexual activity when consent is not obtained or is not freely given. So as I began to study, I got some numbers for you, Pastor Sonia, because I remember when I first heard your story and when you shared it at our retreat, we were all in tears, because just the strength you stood to share that and to be so transparent, to bring all that liberty to other people in the room that had their own secrets, because they all started coming out. There are a lot of things that we deal with internally, especially molestation, rape, things like that. You don't tell anybody because of the shame and the guilt that comes along with it. So you keep it to yourself, you internalize it. And I think the enemy kind of uses it to kind of keep you handicapped. So I got some of these numbers and I'm gonna give you a chance. It says that millions of people are affected by sexual violence, but they don't know exactly how many. Why? Because most cases go unreported. People don't report it because of what I just said about the shame and the embarrassment and all of the feelings that go along with that. Nearly 1 in 5 women. Now, this is according to CDC. 1 in 5 women have experienced completed or almost completed rapes in their lifetime. 1 in every 5 women. Those numbers are crazy. And when you realize that this is so prevalent, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's talking about it. And so 1 in 3 female rape victims experienced it for the first time between 11 and 17. And this is according to the CDC rules, okay? We know that they're extremes. 1 in 8 rape victims reported that it occurred before 10. Females between 16 and 19 are 4 times more likely than the general population to be victims of a rape, attempted rape, or sexual assault. Now, those numbers, it's way too common. This is way too common to be happening. And the numbers got, smaller and smaller as far as 1 in 3, 1 in 5. So I want to hear from you, Pastor Sonia, to talk a little bit about what I just shared about the sexual violence and assault, as you talked about the molestation and the rape. Just give us some insight in what you thought about those numbers.
Okay. So as you were talking about the numbers and the age that it started, mine started around the age of 9. And as you were saying that we don't know what it is at the time. So at that age, I didn't know what it is. My first encounter with that was I was at the beach trying to learn how to swim. By the way, today I still don't swim, but because I was so traumatized by anyone teaching me how to swim, because that's what it was. There was the males at the beach, and they said, come, let me teach you how to swim. And so you're laying across their arm and they're fondling you. So you're not even knowing that, wait, something isn't right,
Right.
but you don't say anything because you're afraid. And as when we're kids, it's either you're gonna fight, you're gonna flee, or you're gonna freeze because you don't know what to do. So at that point, I froze. And then it continued on, not with the same person, but with different people throughout my years. Now we talk about sex, we talk about rape, and we talk about molestation. Now, molestation is, yeah, somebody's fondling you and stuff like that. But once they penetrate you, that is rape. And the thing is, I didn't even realize that until way into my adult years, that's what happened. Well, when the gang rape happened, I knew that was rape. But with the molestations along the way, you didn't know, And all this time, I'm not telling anybody. Because again, the shame, here it is. So that happened at 9. Then around 10 years old, here it is. I'm seeing blood because I was penetrated, and I'm seeing the blood. And now knowing that, yeah, that was the hymen that was broken. But you're still not telling anyone, because you're either going to get in trouble. Someone will tell you you're going to get in trouble, or they're going to do something to you because, of that. Now, so the statistics, you didn't even pay attention to. Even in my adult years, I didn't even pay attention to that, because after all, this couldn't be happening to anybody else but me.
Right.
So, so for 40 years, I never told anyone. No one in my family knew. I had a brother who suspected that something happened. The only other person who knew that something happened to me is that it was my girlfriend at the time, who we were in the area when they separated us with the gang rape. We never spoke about it, ever. We never said, what happened to you? What happened to me? What did they do to you? We never, ever. Because again, the shame of what happened. And the interesting thing was that at the time when it happened, these were 5 guys older than I was. And at the time when it happened, I walked right past the police station to go home. But I was so traumatized because I was still trying to figure out what happened. I wasn't sexually active. I wasn't, I was 14 years old, wasn't sexually active or anything like that. And I'm trying to think, what just happened to me? So I walked home in a daze. And I got home and not even knowing what to do at that time.
Wow.
I mean, who do you talk to? My mom wasn't, because I grew up in Jamaica, and my mom had already left Jamaica and was in the United States. So, but I don't even know that I would have told my mom that at that time because of the shame and everything that I felt. So I just kept it to myself. And for 40 years, I kept that to myself, didn't tell anyone. I went through, during those 40 years, I contracted a STD, the sexually transmitted disease, at the time of the rape. Didn't know, because I didn't know what that was. So I didn't go to the doctor, didn't tell anybody. And then it got to the point where something was happening to my body. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what this is. So I ended up going to the doctor. By then I was like maybe 15, 16. And they gave me injections and do whatever they had to do. But by then, it had gone so bad, it had infected my whole fallopian tubes and everything. I'd gotten infected. But I'm still not looking at things that way. I'm still tight-lipped, being quiet. And as I said, I just froze. And what I did during those times was just put myself into, I buried myself, because you're talking about coping mechanisms, so you find those things to do that will take your mind off of it. And I didn't have a problem forgetting what happened, remembering what happened. I had a problem forgetting what happened.
Yeah.
That's what the problem was, trying to forget it, but I couldn't forget it. It was constantly there. And so at the age of 19, 20, in 1920, I had a hysterectomy because, again, as I said, everything was damaged. I didn't know what was happening. Naive. I was naive because my innocence had been taken way before I knew anything about what was happening. But throughout that, and I find myself with, as we were talking about coping mechanisms, someone going through the trauma, the traumatic experiences that I've gone through, a lot of young ladies, they become promiscuous.
Yes.
They become promiscuous and they turn to drugs, alcohol, and stuff like that. Well, I didn't, there were parts where I would say, well, I wasn't promiscuous, but I remembered in my adult years, it was like I wanted to be with someone because I was looking for that love. Because at that point now I started realizing, well, these men didn't love me, but I want to be loved. And so you would, go to someone to be loved. And one of the things that I remembered doing was I would want something to drink, alcohol. I never drink hard liquor. It was just like I want some wine because that's going to make me feel okay to do what I'm doing, right? And it got to the point where, okay, so that wasn't it. That wasn't it. Something wasn't right with this. And what got me to the point where it brought a different realization to me was, interestingly enough, what happened when I was maybe about 35. I was introduced to a friend of a friend, a male friend of a female friend. And like the person, we liked each other and stuff. And we're like, okay, we got into an intimate situation.
Mhm.
And I'm laying there, took my shower, came out, and we're in the bed and just sitting there talking. And then all of a sudden, this person starts to tell me where he's from, some of the things that he had done, not about the rape,
Mhm.
just he traveled back and forth between the United States and Jamaica. And so just him starting telling me the people he was around at that time, I realized he was one of the rapists. So here I am getting ready to be intimate with the person who raped me. I'd already lost all my reproductive organs, all of that. And here it is, I'm face to face with the person who raped me. To be honest with you, I can't tell you, I know we didn't get intimate because, again, I froze, like really froze, because here was the trauma happening all over again, and but that brought an awakening to me that was like, okay, I was always afraid of men and steered away from men, but that did it where it was like, okay, this is something is happening here and this is not good. And so it pushed me further into myself, into my academics, into just trying to. It's like you're trying to get that stuff out of you, and trying to do things that to just eradicate that feeling and what is coming at you, and just the thought of someone touching you and all that. And it went on for years in my life, for years in my life. And like I'll fast forward into now. I was married before, and just, well, I had issues with a mother-in-law, so that ended. And then she told me, she said, you will never, now listen to the things that we tell people and we say to people that traumatize them even more. She says, you will never have anyone to love you. There is not going to be, you're not going to ever get married to anyone because no one will want you. No one is going to love you. Wow. So here it is now, fast forward, I'm married now for 12 years. And it's like I feel like I spend my time trying to make my husband prove himself to me that he loves me.
Wow.
It's like he has to prove himself that he loves me. That's a tall order to put on a man. Yes. It is, you know? So no matter how much he says he loves me, it's like I'm saying, I'm questioning, do you really love me?
Yeah.
You
So
know?
this goes along with what you said earlier, that it still affects your life decisions. It still
Yes.
affects your choices. It still affects you, even though this happened all these years. That's the thing about trauma. It never goes away, but
Never
you
goes
have
away.
to learn to adjust and live your life, even with
Yes.
this thing.
Yes.
So, wow, that was powerful. I know the audience is enjoying this conversation. I see some of the comments as you guys are talking. So I didn't say this earlier. If you guys have questions, please put them in the comment section. Or if it is personal, you can DM Spirit Led. My team is managing that box. They'll get those questions to me so that I can get the questions to them and they can answer the questions while we're live. So you got to do it now. You can't email me after the show because I won't have access to both of them like this. So make sure you go ahead and put that, get that question in there. So let's go to, I wanted to talk about two more areas of coping mechanisms. And thank you guys for, I just love y'all transparency, man. This is so liberating. The second thing I want to talk about is self-harm. So the first one was addictions, but the second is self-harm. And I wanted to bring that up because when I worked in the high schools, I saw this more often than people who were cutters and things of that nature. So self-harm, for the audience sake, it is a deliberate self-harm is a way of expressing and managing negative emotions. When you have all these feelings, you don't know what to do with them. So and they may have anxiety or shame or hurt. And so they do something to their bodies to kind of release in their minds. This is quote, the pain. And so deliberate self-harm may also provide a temporary escape from emotional pain. So it's like you can stop thinking about the emotional part of what happened and you're focusing on the pain in your body. So I learned later that today's new way of self-harm is an abundance of tattoos. Not that everybody that has tattoos, that's what they're doing, but that is a way that people who are cutters can cut safely. Did you know, Pastor Belinda? I see you nodding.
Yeah,
Have you-
I've seen a lot of that. Yeah, and I'm not one. I don't have any tattoos. I can't stand the needle.
Either.
But I think when you were talking about it, I was just thinking about the overindulgence, probably with eating and things like that, or excessive shopping. Because even when I stopped using drugs, I started doing other stuff to kind of like fill that hole. And I know now that's what I was doing. I didn't understand it in the beginning. Like I said, the over excess. Got to be shopping, got to be doing that. And even at one time, I used church as a way to cope or to help fill that void. And I know
Come
it
on
was
through.
healthy in the beginning. It kind of like, it just consumed me because I didn't know what else to do with myself. And I didn't know how to really relax and just be myself and just take time for myself. So I went all the way in that direction. And I was a part of also the 12-step program. So I spent a lot of time in that. So I wouldn't say overindulgence in a bad way. So, but it helped me, but I know I didn't really know how to take care of Belinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if that makes sense.
I got it. I'm glad
Yeah.
you brought up a very important point when you talked about the church component. Because and I am a pastor for those that don't know, so I ain't church bashing.
Yeah.
But when you said that, I've been a pastor for 19 years now. And I have endured people, sometimes they come to the church for help. They said, I want to be rescued. But when they swing that way, they put everything in, but it's out of fear. It's not even out of relationship. I just want to have a relationship with God and grow in a healthy way. But they think the acts of church and going through the semantics is going to save them. And sometimes they're so afraid of resorting back to their old ways, and to everything becomes the physical part of church and religion, and they don't have a relationship.
Yeah.
And then they don't last. I mean, because you can't stay in that constant place. So after a while, you'll kind of, veer off or wind up doing something else because it's not really meeting the need. So I'm glad you said that, because that addictions are addictions. And you don't have to just be addicted to drugs and alcohol. And I'm glad you said that you can switch from one thing to the other. So if you have an addictive nature, it is very easy to get addicted to shopping or whatever else that you are doing. And if you have trauma on top of that, I think it just adds fuel to the fire. So let's go to number 3. Number 1 was addictions. Number 2 was self-harm. Number 3 is internalization. And I'm going to go to Dr. Sonia with that. And it said
Mhm.
internalization, and I saw this little quote said, when shame turns to blame. And that kind of hit me in my
Mhm.
stomach, you know, when shame turns to blame. And that's when guilt and
Mhm.
condemnation comes in, and you feel
Yeah.
like I'm not good enough, and that
Yeah.
I'm not good enough syndrome. And so when
Mhm.
people have internalizing behaviors, such as they're withdrawn, or they feel sad, they feel lonely,
Mhm.
nervous, all of these are internalizing, you know, the
Mhm.
emotions. You don't deal with it. So Pastor Sonia, I want you to take a minute to speak on that, about internalizing.
Yes. So that's what I did. Because again, you said it, I didn't feel good enough. I didn't feel worthy enough. People used to say to me, oh, they would compliment me because I'm a shopper always. And anybody who knows me knows there's clothes for me. And that's my escape that's my safe place to go to when I don't feel good. Go for a drive, go to the mall, go shop. Well, it gets to the point now where after a while, what else can I get? Because I don't need anything else. So, well, yeah, what else can I get? I'm not going anywhere now with the pandemic. Where do I wear these clothes and these shoes and these, But internalizing it in the sense that, okay, if something happens, one of those moments where my self confidence is not as high, and then I get into this space where I go into depression,
Yeah.
where that's what would happen. I would go into depression because after, okay, nobody wants to be around me. Nobody really likes me. And you have these pity parties and these, self-pitying moments. And and I would just like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to see anybody. And now I'm going to be honest with you. These things have happened even while I'm in ministry.
Yes. Yes.
They
Hallelujah.
happen even while I'm in,
Yes.
so people will see you because there are times when I'm just at such a low point, and then someone will call. Now I'm in ministry, so someone calls and I have to minister to them, And so you're ministering to them through your hurt and your pain, and they don't even know. I mean,
Come on,
sometimes
God.
when I finish, I feel better, and I'm saying to myself, well, why didn't I tell myself that I just told them? Yeah, why wasn't I
Right
telling
there.
myself that? But that's the grace of God that God gives me to minister through that, and people have a tendency that is, you said earlier, that they don't know what you've been through. They don't know what you have gone through. They don't know the price you have paid for the anointing that you have and for where you are and for what you're doing. And so they take it for granted, and people will look at you as though, oh, who does she think she is? So all of that makes you internalize all these feelings. You go out there, you minister, you do what you do, and then you come in and you shut yourself away, and nobody knows it, because when they see you, they're not seeing that part of you. They're seeing the dressed up part of you. They're seeing the masked part of you, where you're wearing that mask and you're showing showing a different side of you, but they don't know what you're going through on the inside. So, internalizing all those emotions and all those fears and all those insecurities and all those things that you just bottle up inside of you, because and you feel nobody cares. I'm not good enough anyway,
Yeah.
and
It
you
eats away. It eats
it
away.
eats away. It
Yeah.
eats away. And that's why I'm able to, because of what I've gone through, that's why I'm in ministry. If anybody had told me that I would be in the ministry that I'm in, I
Wow.
would tell them, no way, no way. But see, God has given me that grace to see, to discern even things that I see in women, and to understand what they're going through. And they themselves have internalized these things inside of them. And because I've gone through it, I can empathize with it. I can see what they're going through. I can understand their pain. And so that's where that passion comes in for women's ministry for me.
Wow. Beautiful.
Mm.
A couple other things I want to add with internalizing behaviors, and we're coming down to the end of our time. Y'all, this time goes so fast when we have a good conversation. But I want people to know we're giving you this information so that you can identify yourself, because sometimes you're experiencing this stuff and you don't even realize what's really going on with you. But when you internalize, you also have headaches, physical symptoms,
Mhm.
stomach aches. You know, I know people, they say their stomach hurts, they get really nervous, and it's just like, I don't know what's going on. And they have all that stuff inside. They don't know, they don't have an outlet to let it out. And your body can only take so much. I need to say that again. Your body can only take so much, and then it starts manifesting through high blood pressure, you know, and through other issues, because that stress and that pain of what you feel has to go somewhere. So we want to make sure that you guys know that it, you know, not to internalize. You say, what do you do? I see on here, they're like, well, who do you talk to? And we're going to get into that, because that is the last part. I want to give you a chance, Pastor Belinda, to talk about internalization. I saw your face, and I saw you nodding your head. So I do want to give you a minute to jump on that internalizing, and then we're going to get into what do you do? How do you come out? Because y'all got to tell us how you got out, because y'all made the great escape, and then we're going to be done for tonight.
Well, basically, I just did or echo everything Dr. Sonia said. But yeah, they're blamed and not feeling good enough. And it's like, for me, my stomach gets like in knots. And it's just like, I don't want to be bothered. Don't talk to me. I just don't want to hear it. And I'm really an extrovert. And everybody that knows me know that I am. But like when I come home, if something is bothering me, I shut down. I go to my room. Don't say nothing to me. My husband.
Oh yeah,
God bless him. He gets the brunt of it, but he loves me, you know, through it all. But yeah, and then not knowing really what's going on and having those avenues to be able to talk about it and get it out. But a lot of times I don't, and I wait till it gets like way up here, and then I'm able to get it out. But I guess one thing I can just kind of lead, if you don't mind, segue into I went to therapy.
No, that's a perfect, because that's exactly where we're going. So just
after
continue.
a while, you know, we shout, we go to church, and then it's like it's so much that gets, for me, it gets all tangled up, and it's like I have to get somebody to help me to untangle it. And I have had a lot of sessions with my pastor that she has helped me to untangle some of that stuff, but also in my personal life, being able to talk about that real gut level stuff that you really don't want to talk about. That's the stuff that I need to talk about, the shame and the guilt. And then I had wrote down one thing that I didn't know how sensitive I was. I really just didn't know. And when you sent the thing and it talked about people that deal with emotional attachment, they're really very sensitive people. But they try to put this guard up so they won't get hurt. They won't have to go through all those feelings and things like that. And so when you have a parent that don't know how to deal with that person, they say, you know, you shouldn't be crying about that. Why are you always crying? It's because I feel so much, and sometimes I don't know what to do with it. So I had to go to therapy to learn how to put it into little boxes and be able to deal with it. So that was one of the things that I'm learning about myself.
I am glad that you brought that out about the therapy, because that's exactly where we're going. Say, what do you do to overcome relational trauma or any type of trauma? And therapy is number one on the list. And I'm glad that people are recognizing, in people of color. You know, I'm a person of color, so I can say this, that we recognize that it's okay to go to therapy, okay? That there are professionals. We go to professionals for everything else. We need to go to a professional for our minds. I don't know why we feel like it is a poor investment to invest in your mind, and your mind controls everything else. So if your mind is not right, if you're all, what would you say, all entangled in your mind, you have all these emotions you're not dealing with, then your mind is not healthy. You're not processing things properly. You're making decisions that are in your feelings. And so therapy is absolutely, I think it's a saving grace for some people. Not everybody has to go to therapy. If you can work it out on your own, then, you know, but if you can't, that is something that we should consider. And I'm glad that people are being more conscious and cognizant of mental health. So I think that is important. I don't know, Pastor Sonia, if you went to therapy, but I know therapy is one of the things. I read that it's the first line of treatment for trauma. Therapy. Yeah. You want to speak on that?
Well, at the younger stage in my life, and when I went through all that, I never went to therapy. So as I told you, no one knew about it for 40 years. So I never went to therapy. But after that, I was involved in a group that I was asked to be a part of a group. To actually, let me back up. I went to the doctor one day, and one of the things that you said that if somebody may think that they don't need therapy because they're all right, that's where I was. I felt like, I'm all right. I don't need therapy. I've been handling this. I can handle it. But I went to the doctor one day and something happened and I went to the doctor and just the whole pressure of everything came right then because they took my blood pressure and my blood pressure was so high. And the nurse looked at me and said, just looked at me. It was a male nurse. And he looked at me and said, it's overwhelming, isn't it? Let me tell you, everything came out then.
Wow.
Everything came out. I just boo-hooed, boo-hooed. And he says, do you want to talk with someone? I said, yes, because at that point, I didn't know what to do. And so, because all along I kept feeling like I was okay. Because one of the things too that we don't understand, we're going along thinking we're okay, but then there's that trigger, something that triggers something in you that you're not even understanding why that triggered something in you. And so I started talking with the therapist and everything, but I just went through for a short period of time to just get all whatever was going on out. But then the therapist asked me to be a part of a group session. And at the time I was in ministry early on. So she knew that I was doing this. So she wanted me to be a part of the group. She says to help the group. Right? To help the group. Well, that the help was really for me. But subsequently after that, she did ask me to be a part of another group. Well, the first group was just a female group. And the second group she asked me to be a part of was male and female, which, that was really to help the group because then she realized, but the first part wasn't to help the group, was really to help me. And so I understood a lot about what I was experiencing and how now to deal with and to manage those emotions. And you talk about therapy. I actually did a class in conscious awareness therapy. Mm-hmm. And if anyone can do that, you learn so much about the shadow, that shadow that is hiding in the background, that you think you're okay and you don't understand some of the things you do, your behaviors and stuff.
Come on,
that's why it comes out, because of the traumatic experiences that you have had.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I do believe. I remember I was watching a talk show, and I remember one of the ladies on there said she would not date someone unless he had been through therapy. And I thought, really? But then when she explained, it made sense.
Yeah.
Because that's part of our wholeness, being healthy.
Yeah, to get in touch.
That's the wholeness. Yes.
Yeah.
So
that's cool.
Wow.
All right. I like that.
That's powerful right there. That's good.
It is.
That's good right there. Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah.
So Dr. Sonia used the term triggers. If you guys don't know what triggers are, Pastor Belinda, one of y'all want to talk about what triggers are quickly?
That thing that sets you off.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you were going to say it like that.
That's just as plain as I could get it, because I know, even like in recovery, they talk about being aware of the triggers, people, places, and things. Yeah. So it's as simple as that. Somebody may say something to you, you might get a snide look, right now, because it's not about drugs or anything, but just that emotional turmoil. Like if I don't get it right, oh, why did you do that? You didn't even do that right. I remember one time I called my mom about something, and all she said is, "You sure you want to do that?" And I just felt like a little kid all over again. Like, get it right again. Well, when am I ever going to get it right? So I find myself overcompensated, trying to make it right, and then when I can't make it right, I retreat. So that's a trigger for me, and I had to learn what are those things that make me feel like that little girl over again. And Pastor Di, I don't know if you remember when I used to go for long, extensive visits to see my mom, and I always would wind up being in this hole when I got back. And you told me, you said, stop doing that. Why did you do that to yourself? And I couldn't understand it. So you told me to make my visit shorter, and it worked.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
anything after 3 days, I got to go. I'm sorry. And how they say after 4 days, the fish starts stinking. So I had to learn. That was just something for me. It had nothing to do with
Yeah.
it. I had to stop blaming her for how I felt and how I internalized what was going on. But I know after a while, I just can't take it. So, I don't know who that's for, but that was a trigger for me because I started to feel like that little girl all over again. You
Oh,
didn't do
yes.
it right. You're not good enough. Nobody, and when you talked about nobody wanting you, that was something that I heard with the 3 children coming out of what I was coming into. Ain't nobody gonna want you. You ain't good enough. I've been married now for 23 years.
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
was a lie. But I still believe that. Like, so now I got to overcompensate in that area to get this man to making sure I live up to that and be right with that. You know what I'm saying? Get past that. And so this all that stuff that you hear and all the negative emotion that goes with it. And it just keeps building and building and building and building and building and building. And where does it go to?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
wish people would monitor what they say. You know,
Yes.
it would just save a whole lot of headache because some things are just unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. To
And
even
then
say.
when you react, they don't understand why you're reacting. Well, why you react like that? Because as Pastor Belinda said, we're sensitive. We're very
Very
sensitive.
sensitive.
Yeah.
And they don't know your trauma that you've been through, and they
Yeah.
say something that just sets you off. I
Mhm.
remember one little incident that set me off. Again, someone introduced me to a friend, and we went out. We went out in a group, and I was all dressed up. We went to a formal occasion. I was all dressed up, and this was someone who was trying to date me, but I wasn't really dating him at the time. And the person who introduced me, I said to me, "Oh, he thinks you're hot." I was like, "Oh, that triggered something in me. Hot. Of all the things that you could say to me or about me, is that I'm hot?" And so that just triggered something like, wait a minute, I spent so much money on my education. I've been through all of it, and all you saw was that I was hot. Somebody said, "Well, Sonia, it's a man and he's not seen your mind." But listen, it triggered something in me.
Mhm.
It triggered something in me. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, those triggers, they come.
Yeah. You
And
have to. You have to know
lash
yourself.
out, and we lash out at people because all that anger is built up. So you lash out at people. And
Yeah, I'm glad you said that too. Yeah, but you have to know yourself to
Mhm.
and get ahead of those triggers so that you don't lash out because it's too hard to go back and apologize for something you done cut up, you done showed
Mhm.
your behind, and now you got to go back and be sorry. It's too hard to do it.
You know,
So if you
worse
can
when
get
you're in
ahead,
ministry.
yeah. Oh God, that's just extra fuel to the fire. Cause yeah. So,
Yeah.
but to get ahead of those triggers so that you can avoid that as much as possible because people are going to be people and is nothing you can do about that. But if you can identify yourself and control yourself, and I like
Mhm.
that you said those things that set you off because when you know what sets you off, and sometimes you have to exit. You be like, okay, peace out.
Mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
out because I'm about to cut somebody to the white meat. And so when you know you there, and they were like, well, why, and then want to use the pastor card. Why pastor acting like that? Really? So people will provoke you to act up and then act like they shocked. They don't know why you acting like that because that's
Mhm.
the truth. So a
Mhm.
couple other things, and we're going to be done. I'm gonna give you all a chance to talk about your organizations, and we're gonna be finished. So we talked about therapy. I want to make sure I talk about self-care because that is something else
Mhm.
that can really benefit, can help if you are dealing with relational trauma or any type of trauma. Self-care, it says practicing that self-care to help you to cope better with the emotional, psychological, and physiological components of
Mhm.
trauma. So that's exercise, connecting with other people. I like she brought up the groups because
Yes.
you realize you're not in this by yourself, a balanced lifestyle. And when you're talking about a
Mhm.
balanced lifestyle, eat well, sleep well, make sure you have time to relax and not allow so much stress to take over you because it brings those feelings back. It makes you relive that trauma all over again. So it's important that you practice self-care as well.
Mhm.
So I wanted to make sure we put that out there. I think we are just about done. I want to give you guys a few minutes to talk about your organizations, because lastly, I want the beautiful people to know these ladies not only endured the stuff that they shared today, and they didn't even cover half of it, y'all. We can only hit a little bit, but I wanted the audience to know, like I said early, the power that you both have. Not only did you get out, but you created organizations to reach back and help women who dealt with some of the same issues that you dealt with. I think that within itself is powerful. So I want you to take a few minutes just to talk about your organization. I believe that they're going to put if you have a website, they can put it in the comments so people will know how to reach you. I know Woman to Woman's on Facebook. I don't know, Dr. Sonia, is your organization, do you have a Facebook page?
No.
Okay. So you'd have to get in contact with Dr. Sonia if you are interested. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I got my little piece of paper. I'll be like, Dr. T, I wrote it all down, but I'm not going to go all through that.
Yeah, no, please don't go through all of that.
No, I'm not going to do all that. But just after I got clean, I think I was maybe like 2 or 3 years clean, and I heard the whole. Okay, now it's 30 years. It'll be 30 years in February. Yeah. But when I was about maybe like 8 years clean, I heard the Holy Spirit say, do a meeting, start a meeting. And I thought he meant like go to another meeting to us, because I would come from 12-step era or whatever. And I told somebody, she said, do what the Lord told you to do. And that was the only thing that I remember him saying, was start a meeting. And I told her about it, and she said, well, I'll help you, get it started. So hence we came up with the name Woman to Woman. So I have always had the desire to give back, because I know about the power of group talk, group therapy, being there for each other. So that's how Woman to Woman got started. And we have been doing business of helping women tell their story for the last 20 years. And the mission of the group is just to bridge the gap for women in the community. And I came up with this. I didn't come up with it, but I had to have a little vision and mission statement and all of that stuff. But say our cause is focused on the physical, spiritual, and mental well-being of participants, particularly women that are recovering from substance abuse, or those that are coming out of jails, street, whatever, just being a sounding board for those. They say this group helps deal with some of the generational trauma and abuse that continues to plague our community. So we all know that it's so much going on in our community, so we have to be there for each other. And that's basically what we do. We have, now we meet monthly on Zoom, because we can have our quarterly brunches and fellowships and things like that. And I always try to get women that have overcome, or I will always say a step above that is able to give back. And both of you ladies have come to my group, and we have had a plethora of women speakers that they have just been phenomenal. And I often say, people say, oh, you do such a wonderful job, but no one knows what that group has done for me. It has really allowed me to live a better life and to be able to give back because of what God gave to me. And one thing Bishop said on Sunday as well, he talking about how God has moved us from shame to grace.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe that's what the organization does for the women in the community. It helps move them from one standpoint to another, but it's only by another woman. So we help women tell their story as well.
From shame to grace. Yeah. All right. So they put both your information. I see it in the comments. And Pastor Belinda, before I jump to Dr. Sonia, I see your little backdrop back there with your little Woman to Woman in the background. Yes, honey. I see you, girl. I see you. I see you. Going, I ain't mad.
mad. I was a little bit, I'm going to tell you, I was a little scared at first. I said, I don't know if that's too much. Then I said, you know what? Okay, I'm just saying, but that was the internal dialogue that I was going, oh, much people going to think. I said, well, I had to do self-talk to myself.
Wow.
So I'm just saying, that's just how I get like that little wheel, and I had to
go big.
Go big, girl. Stay home, because I already.
Go big. All right, Dr. Sonia, give us a couple minutes with your organization, and then we're going to close out.
Okay, so my organization is Faith, Salvation, and Healing Women's Ministry and FSH Ministries. And actually, how this came to being was the Lord had been speaking to me. Oh my gosh, how long has that been, Sister Belinda?
When we
when
used
we
to
were
work
working
together, we worked together. Yeah.
worked together, and the Lord had been speaking with me. But I was like, nah, because I had already ran from it. Because as I said, 40 years, I wasn't telling anyone. And I'm like, when the Lord says, no, you're going to tell your story. I'm like, oh, no, that shame and all that. No, I wasn't doing that. And I was sitting at my desk one day, and Pastor Belinda came, and she said, um, she kept looking at me. And I was like, why is she looking at me like that? Then she says, the Holy Spirit wants me to say something to you. And she gave me a tape that Bishop Lazare back then had made in Bible study about the Lord is calling you into ministry, but you're holding on to your job. Yes.
Oh, that was cold, Pastor Belinda. That was cold.
Back to me and said, the Lord has said, so she and I went to lunch, went for a walk, and we were talking. And the funny thing was that we both thought about that woman to woman, because remember that little building on Andrews that I showed you, and it says women's minister. I left and went back to New York, and she was here. And I started about 10 years ago with women to woman, but FSH ministry, because I had the FSH when I was here, but I didn't know what it meant until when I got to New York. And I'm saying, okay, FSH, I was going to put FSHS, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But it was like I couldn't get that done. And then I was driving in New York one day, just when now I've decided, the Lord says, yes, you have to do this. I gone to a women's retreat, and they asked me to just say something. They knew nothing about what I was going through or what I'd been through. And the Holy Spirit, I'm standing up there, and everything just started coming out. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. All my business being put out in the street. And there was a young lady in the corner. She was just bawling. And while I'm talking, I'm saying to myself, what am I doing? Did I say something, Well, come to find out that she came up to me afterward. I went to her actually and asked her if she was okay. And she says, everything that you just said up there, that's my life. Wow. She said, I've gone through it. I'm married for 3 years. My husband don't even know. She says, I cry myself to sleep a lot. And I'm thinking, oh God, okay, God, what are you doing? Next thing I know, he was saying, okay, launch the ministry. I'm like, I don't know about that. But he had to let an elevator fall with me 16 floors. And while I'm laying on my bed, he's like, okay, now are you going to do what I tell you to do? I was like, okay. I surrendered, I gave up, and that's how the ministry got birthed. And he said, faith, salvation, and healing women's ministry.
Wow.
And that's how that got started. And then there was something else that I do, and it has woman to woman. And I came back and I saw Mother Belinda, woman to woman. And I was like, oh my God, God is so awesome. And I've been to several of her stuff, and she's just doing a phenomenal job. So I've been here now 5 years, trying to get the ministry going here. We have done several things, but then now it was getting ready to just launch out, and the pandemic hit, because I had to reorganize the ministry with the help of a dear friend here in Florida, and just reorganize the ministry and trying to get it going. And then the pandemic hit. So now I'm waiting on the Lord. I'm seeking the Lord to say, okay, where do I go with this? But the ministry, the focus of the ministry is actually to provide crisis intervention and just encouragement and empowerment to women who have just hurting, women who are just hurting, who have gone through a lot of traumatic experiences, are still going through those experiences, domestic violence, depression, all those things, and just to be there for them as a shoulder to lean on, to encourage them, to empower them, and to let them know that God is still on the throne. He's still watching over them, and that their past doesn't determine what their future is going to be, and they don't have to be stuck where they are. I just want to, I have a quote here that I want to say. One of the things that we need to do is to shift our thoughts. And I think you kind of touched on that, Pastor. But there is two of my most loved quotes is from Cindy Trim. And one of the things that she says, could it be that things are the way they are because you are the way you are.
Mhm.
And then the next one, she says, what one thing could you change that would change everything and put you on a different path? Um, and my theme scripture is Psalm 147:3, and it says, God heals the brokenhearted and bind up their wounds. Now, see, once he heals the pain of your past, there's no more shame, no more hurt, no more ache. And all those things are just, they become just memories, just
Yeah.
memories.
Yeah.
That's what they are because you have been healed. And that's what my purpose is, to help women to find that healing place.
Yeah. The enemy can't use it against you anymore.
No,
So
because I.
once you remove the sting, yeah,
Mhm,
you're just like, oh, I'm good now. I'm moving forward.
mhm. I'll
So
tell everybody now.
all right. Well, we are a little over our time, but this was absolutely awesome. I know that they enjoyed it. I saw some of the comments. So those that are still with us, I want to encourage you to please share this live with everybody you know, especially those who've experienced trauma. Say, listen, these are real stories. These are not fabricated in any way. So please make sure you share this information, text, say, listen, let's watch it. Do watch parties and say, let's have a conversation. Because we need to bring these things to the table and have conversations so that we can move forth and be healed and be whole. So this ends our segment of Courageous Conversations, Mental Health, Relational Trauma. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Doc Di. I am the CEO of Spirit Lab. We just celebrated 10 years, y'all. So
Yeah.
I am grateful for opportunity for these beautiful ladies joining me today. I absolutely love both of them. So I know that you were blessed tremendously. Please send us an email. Let us know if this touched you in any way. Let us know. Share your story with us, and I can get the story to them. So I am excited about moving forward. Thank you, Dr. Sonia Cook.
Yes.
Thank you, Pastor Belinda Knox. I love y'all. Hugs and kisses. I appreciate you so much. I look forward to God doing miraculous things through both of you. And I appreciate your transparency and honesty today. May the Lord bless you richly. And I say in Jesus' name, even though this ain't church. All right. I love y'all. Thank you. Good night, y'all. Thank you for joining us. I'll see you
Thank you
Good
soon.
night.
guys.
Good
Bye
night.
bye. Good night.